Welcome back to Beyond the Uniform. I'm Justin Nassiri. My goal is to help members of the military community thrive in their post-service career and life. Today is episode number 461 with Herb Thompson. Herb is joining me in Washington, D.C. Herb, welcome back to Beyond the Uniform.
Hey, what's up, buddy? I'm happy to be here. Happy to have this conversation.
So for listeners, a little bit of background, first on Herb, and then second of all on why we're here. He is a program manager of veterans programs at his company called ServiceNow. He is also the author of the best-selling book Transition Mission. Previously, he served in the U.S. Army for 11 years, where he was the only person ever to earn the Green Beret and Army Drill Sergeant of the Year awards. And he was also a management consultant at Accenture. Way back in January of 2020, we did an interview together when his book first came out. And Herb is someone I follow actively on LinkedIn. I recommend you follow him as well. He has incredible content. And I thought it had been way too long since we connected and thought we may as well record the conversation. So that's the context for everyone. So maybe to start things off, dude, we talked over 2 years ago, right when your book had come out. Take us through what's new, man. What happened since you launched your book and it went on to become a bestseller?
Yeah, I didn't realize the book was going to cause a global pandemic. No, but honestly, not making jokes or something that was very serious, but like life changed for everyone, right? And it definitely did for me. Like, wrote the book and finished out grad school, and then was like, what's next for me? I knew my job. There was three things I thought I needed, and that was missing. My purpose, essentially my team, and then my identity. I was like, I don't feel good about any of those three things right now. So I left that and then found this opportunity to come to ServiceNow, which I absolutely love it here. But also on the home front, like everything's. I feel like there's the transition of, hey, there's the job and finding the role, but there's also family and how that's different. And then being in for 20 years and always being gone from family to now being home and adjusting to being with the kids and with the family here. So it's great. I could not be in a better place right now.
That's incredible. Do you feel like was like the writing of the book, was that like this necessary part of just understanding your own story? Like, do you think that led to these things falling into place?
I think some of that led to
Yeah.
what's happened fall in place. I think another thing is cathartic, right? Just to get some thoughts out. And part of what I loved about what I did in the military was I felt like I was helping people, and I could
Yeah.
see it, and I wanted to do more of that. And I was like, how do I scale that? So I can. For me, it was always at every duty station. Let me just help one. If I make a positive difference in that person's life, all these extra hours, all the whatever's worth it, or on a deployment. Hey, if I just do something that really impacts one person's life. But that was like, let's scale that up. So that's kind of how the book came about. And then, through my LinkedIn and my outreach was just to like, hey, let's make more of an impact. So I think they go together, right? One may not have been the cause of the other, but it goes together.
What was the start of your LinkedIn journey? Because your audience on LinkedIn is absolutely massive. Were you doing that at the time of the book, or like how did that evolve over time?
I was so like many that are transitioning out of the military, like someone told me, hey, you got to get on LinkedIn. I was like, okay. And I did it and was like, all right, what now? Like, I connected with 75 people and sat there. But I realized, hey, I had to start engaging. And I was very nervous. Like, I had just been in a firefight, had just jumped out of
Mm.
airplanes, and I was more scared to do a LinkedIn post than I was to do that stuff. And it probably seems comical, but I was like, I was scared, right? Because like, ooh, now I'm out on social media, which was not my thing. So I started just doing it more. And for me, I was like, it was helping me because I was getting some of my thoughts out there, but I realized it was helping others. And if I shared a tidbit or something I saw, it helped others and they were going through a similar process or had gone through the same process and they could give me some info. And, it kind of became this just helping community of helping each other. So that's really where it started. And I never tried to do anything with it. It was just like, hey, let me post some thoughts with it. And then we've gotten to where I am today.
Wow. I love that thought of having been in firefights and jumped out of planes, how it can be more intimidating to put yourself out there in social media. I think for those who know you, for those who follow you on LinkedIn, it makes it even more impressive to see how active you are despite that initial fear and misgiving. Is there any advice you'd give to people listening, especially those on active duty, about LinkedIn or social media in general and why they might want to be active on it?
Yeah, embrace it. It's an opportunity if you leverage it. Can you be successful in life and never touch social media? Yes, of course. I would say it's probably getting harder now as we get more digital and more automated, and kind of how, our environment, our surrounding is changing, and not just in our country, globally, right? Like, how do you connect with somebody? I'm sitting in DC. How do I talk with someone in California? How do I do that? So to me, it's embrace it. Yes, there's some discomfort. Yes, it's a new operating environment to learn. Hey, what's the norms here? But it's an incredibly powerful tool that, for me, I want to be talking to you right now. I could go down basically everything that's happened over the last few years, I would say, and stuff I have coming up. None of that would have been possible without leveraging LinkedIn and kind of basically getting out of my own way of, hey, stop being scared to post on here and actually post some stuff.
Is there anything you would recommend if they're getting started? Is it just kind of starting and just experimenting and getting used to it? Or is there any advice you'd give them on either things to avoid or things that have helped you kind of cultivate your own brand online?
Yeah, definitely be. The one thing I get asked a lot, actually, Justin, is, hey, how do I be authentic?
Hmm.
Kind of authenticity, just be yourself, right?
Yeah.
But know your surroundings. Like, it's not Facebook, it's not Instagram, it's not a locker room, it's not a civic organization. Whatever, it's LinkedIn. Anything you put out, the world can see. So a lot of people could be like, "Oh, that's daunting," but it's like, no, it just, if you normally act a normal way, like I like to say, hey, I would say to grandma's kitchen table, I'll talk about it here, right?
Hmm.
And it's just, hey, be myself. So for me, there's that, and then dip your toes in the water. Just like anything. So sometimes people learn to swim by being thrown in the deep end and figure it out, but sometimes you dip your toes in. So you go in and comment on some people's posts. You share their post and then go, hey, here's what I thought was insightful about this, or here, I'll add this on, or hey, I'm having this trouble too. That's why I shared the post. Then when you get to the point of, okay, I can post, I can write something there, it's fine. I think the biggest thing I hear most people say is, no one wants to listen to me. No, I don't got anything valuable for people to say. That, yeah, we all do. We all learn from each other. Now, some may, write it or put it out there a little better than others, but we all learn from each other.
Do you I'm curious, with your book now being out 2 years, do you ever think of writing another book? And I'm also kind of curious with that of like, I'm just imagining you've got thousands of repetitions of writing on LinkedIn since your last book. And I'm just wondering if that would make the next book easier.
Definitely, I have thought of writing another book. It's just what, what
Yeah.
what topic. And for me, like, really, the transition mission, I wrote most of that in a weekend, which is probably like,
Wow.
oh my god. But I just sat down, focused, like, got up for bio breaks and to get some more food, and kept going for about 48 hours or a little over. But it was because I was passionate about it, and it was all right here. I could get it. I haven't found something I'm that passionate about yet. Again, to
Yeah.
write.
Yep.
So for me, people have talked to me about some stuff like, "Hey, what about this book?" So more to come. The more I see, though, people are impacted, and that's what my girlfriend Corey's really helped me see. Is like, look at the difference you're making in people's lives when they
Mhm.
reach out and tell you. Share more of your story and share that. So that's more of what I'm looking at for, like, a book possibly. But I also don't want to be like, "Hey, here's the Herb story," because that would go against just about everything I kind of think about. So I don't know about the book.
Is there anything top of mind that you feel has changed since the book or is no longer true that was in the book or things that you would like oftentimes wishing you'd put in the book?
So yeah, definitely.
Mm.
I'll be transparent. People will ask me sometimes, like, "Hey, I saw this in the book," and I'm like, "Yeah, what page was it?" Because I don't necessarily remember. I mean, it's been a couple years, right? It's not like I
Yeah.
go read it every day.
Yeah.
So there's some things I probably would have refined it, but the point was, hey, let's get it out there.
Yeah.
Let's keep it raw and authentic. I would have dove into some more of, like, what I know now, of having gone through the interview process at multiple companies and, like, work somewhere, is like, maybe here's some other things to look for, but I think the book was always meant to be a jump start, right? Like a hip pocket guide get you going. It hit the mark for that. But I wouldn't say anything hasn't come back not true. Just I would probably, explain it a little differently or even expound on it.
That's great. Um, I'm also curious, what would you want people to know about your work at ServiceNow? Like what sort of work do you do there?
So it's actually kind of funny. Corey, my girlfriend, and I, a couple of years ago, talked, and she's like, "Hey, companies need to do more to help veterans, and enable them onto future success." And I was like, "No, it's the veterans thing. No one needs to
Mm.
help me. I just need to do it right." In my case, and now look at where I'm at. Is like, no, companies do have a part of this, but it's not a charity case. It's because how do we leverage that talent? How do we leverage these awesome veterans who have this experience? How do we leverage that and use it to, improve our bottom line? Because at the end of the day is what the point of a company's for. So that's what I get to now. So a lot of what I was doing in my free time, or all my free time, was, helping veterans, their transition, and what's not just veterans. I love helping everyone, just veterans, kind of the natural kind of connection. So that's what I can do at Service Now, is work with veterans breaking their careers into tech, getting them into the ecosystem, training them up, running a program that does that, among some other stuff. So really, it's just expanded on. I found when I saw the job requisition, I saw a post on LinkedIn. I was like,
Mm.
"Hey, Corey, this job was written for me." She's like, "Yeah, yeah." I was like, "No, no, no, no. Listen, this job was written for me." Like,
Mm.
it was like they should have put my name in there and just said no one else apply. And that's how I felt when I saw the job. And then I had
Mm.
to go out and, interview and go through the process. But I love it. It's a great company, but also I get to do something I'm passionate about.
That's awesome. I saw on your profile, it says on that position, like found through LinkedIn. And I just think, I don't know if it's true or not, but I thought, like, how amazing would it be if you're spending this time on LinkedIn and you're helping other veterans, and then through that you're on LinkedIn and you see this job post and it's the job that you end up getting. It's certainly deserved if something came back to you for all the help you've given people.
Yeah, even to make it more incredible of a
Mm.
backstory is Corey, my girlfriend, we're blended household, lived together. She was out of work. She was pivoting careers. I had quit my job doing management consulting because I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And it had been a few months.
Yeah.
uh, we were just sitting there. It was one afternoon at like 3 p.m. I was on the couch next to her. I was looking through job ad, it popped up, and I was like, "That's it right there." And it's really, that's what LinkedIn is. It is what you make of it, right? I guess
Yeah.
that's a lot in life. I always say own your journey, because it is. Life is what
Mm.
about what you make it. There's hardships, there's trials and tribulations, but hey, it's about what you make it. You go own your journey and make success happen.
I was on mute. I was writing that. I just love that thought. I wrote down, own your journey. Life is what you make of it, just like with LinkedIn. That's really cool. I think that's one of the messages that comes through in a lot of your content. I think that's something people gravitate towards, is that sense of ownership. And I wanted to also make space, because service now is one thing that you do, but you've got so much going on right now. What would you want people to know about what's going on in your life?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, because I think maybe the common thing that I hear is like, or if I meet someone, they're like, "Oh, you're from LinkedIn." It's like, no, actually, I'm human and I have a life. Like, we don't, just like you. If someone bumps into you, is like, "Justin, I know you from LinkedIn." Like, no, I don't live in
Yeah.
LinkedIn. Like, I have a
Yeah.
real life. And
Mm.
for us, we have 4 teenagers, two of them that are graduating high school this year. So just like every other parent, we're looking at colleges and what do they do. And then, like, one of our younger kids already knows he wants to go into trade, so we're looking at that. How do we help him get towards that? So we're navigating life just like everyone else, right? Uh, for example, our TV went out yesterday, right? First world problem. Like, oh, we need to get a new TV now.
Mm.
So that's what I'll do when I finish this. Go finish
Mm.
hanging the TV on the wall. But that's real. That's real world stuff that I think a lot of people don't understand. Is like, because social media is like, oh, there's this thing. It's like, no, we're real people with real problems. Just sharing, kind of, hey, here's some insights of what our life, of what we think can be impactful. So for me, everything I'm doing is to help others, right? Obviously,
Mm.
there's a big veteran component to that, and part of being now in the LinkedIn Creator Accelerator program is getting to like share some more stuff, learn some more tools to do that. And really, my big focus right now is I love ServiceNow, but I say this: the more veterans, and I'll also include military spouses, that more veterans and military spouses that have good soft landings in
Mm.
companies and communities around the country, the better off we'll be.
Yeah.
And I think we need that now more than ever. So that's a lot of what motivates me. So that's a big thing I'm working out, is just getting veterans into tech. I don't care if it's at service now.
Yeah.
Yes, that's who pays my, my daytime job, pays my check, but we just need, there's enough to go around, is we need
Yeah.
veterans in tech. Because I look at it almost like this of, after World War II, veterans came back, and partly from the GI Bill, partly for other reasons, really led kind of the rejuvenation of the United States of building it up. To me, there's a tech boom that veterans haven't been a part of yet. It's a very small percentage. So for me, like, veterans need to get in there. We know how to work with diverse teams on difficult problem sets and make stuff happen. So to me, get the veterans in there to tech companies, and everybody's going to benefit from it. So that's really my focus now.
I think that's such a powerful thought, because as you say that, I'm like, yeah, if a veteran gets out and is in, let's say, tech, they can help other people get into tech. They're working with people who maybe have never worked with a veteran before. They're creating a positive impression. They're succeeding. They're showing people this is what a veteran looks like when they succeed. It's like everyone benefits when you talked about that soft landing, but it's true. Like when someone has that soft landing and succeeds, every other member of the military community succeeds with that. So I love the generosity of just your genuine desire to help people out, whether they're with your company or another one.
Yeah, and I think it even goes deeper too. Like
Mm,
there's no doubt there's an issue with people joining the military these days, and how many people are qualified. Now we could talk about what the military says is qualified, but it's not getting bigger; it's getting smaller, right? So
mm,
there's a big gap of people that have served, not served, kind of a divide, if you will. And I'm always like, well, we could build a wall up, or we could build a
mm.
bridge. And how
Yeah.
do you do that? And like you said, like, get people out there in
Mm,
tech companies, and they work with each other. Like, oh wow, you're not what I pictured a veteran being. It's like, no, like, someone asked me, well, what's a veteran look like? I don't know. Look around you. It
mm.
could look like this, but it could look like you. It could look like that lady. That there's so much that you, guess what? You probably won't know they're a veteran. You'll just see
Yeah.
them walking by, and they probably won't be wearing anything that signifies they're a veteran. That's a good day. But I think for us, as veterans who care about our country, it's up to us to tell our stories, to
Yeah.
help bridge that divide and go, hey, here's what it was like for me to serve. And here's why it was impactful for me. And for me, the Army, I mean, not to get into it, but I grew up in a trailer park, and
Mm,
then, got kicked out of the trailer park because we couldn't pay the bills of the trailer when I
mm.
was like, 10 or 12 years old, and like parents on welfare. To like, look at where I'm at now. I'm at a
Yeah.
large tech company, flew out to the headquarters in Silicon Valley. I've gone to Cornell for an MBA. I could keep listing all these things, and like, the Army was that mechanism for me that was a powerful to change my life, and quite frankly, my kids' lives, and probably their kids' lives. So
Mm.
why not allow other? So to me, it's a big picture thing of not just tech and all that, but it's like long term. How's our country? What's the well being of our country?
Mm. That's incredible. I love thinking about the generational difference that makes for you, of coming from really humble origins and overcoming what I'm imagining are huge obstacles and succeeding in such a big way. Like you said, your kids' lives are better, but their kids' lives are better. They're seeing a role model in you of someone who has taken big risks and achieved big things. And that's got to feel good to realize that you have done all of this when so many things were set against you.
Yeah, I mean, we could always go cower in the corner and go, oh, it's too tough. But
Mm,
to me, it was like, let's make something. And it's funny. I just went home and saw my dad last month, and he still has a flip phone. He's never
mm,
turned on a computer or touched a computer in his life. And I was programming my numbers in there, and he was like, "Oh no, that's too difficult." I'm like, "Well, how do you normally call me?" He's like, "I just dial it." I'm like, "It's too difficult to press one to call me, Dad." Like, but this is like, but look
mm.
at that generational gap between him and I, and then now to my kids who come to me and like, "Hey," I'm like, "Wait, how do you do that? Like, let me,
Yeah.
show me how to use that." Like certain social media stuff. Like one of our kids will show us TikTok. We're like, I don't know how that works. How does that work? But that's to me, that's the generational kind of lift that happens that can change the lives. And I think tech's able to do that. And
Yeah.
part of it is we veterans could be a part of that, or we could be aside from that. And then you get the people who are kind of advanced, without us. So to me, it's better for our country that we're involved in every shape or form across it, all kinds of facets.
I love that. Is there anything you want people to know about tech, or if you've got couple hundred veterans or people on active duty listening to this, what's something they might not know about getting into tech, or advice you'd have for them about it?
It's kind of like when you think of what's a veteran, right? And it can look like
Yeah.
anything. Tech can be the same thing, right? There's all the business functions. So you don't need to, not everyone needs to know how to code. Not everyone's going to be sitting there just computer programming, doing something like that. There's so many ways to break into it and to do stuff that's valuable. And quite frankly, be exciting, be like, wow, I'm making an impact on people's lives. I'm helping people. Or what do you know? You can use tech to give back and help whatever is important to you, whether it's your community, whether it's the veterans, whether it's something else. There's so many ways to get into it. And quite frankly, there's a lot of resources out there. And sometimes that's hard to filter through what resources are good or bad, but there's countless coding boot camps. If you want to go that route, there's countless kind of other boot camps and programs help you go into sales or go here. You got to seek it out. And I think for me, the big thing is like, you have to believe you can
Hmm.
belong. And for me, if you would have told me, we'll go back 30 years. So I'm 42 years old, I think, or I'll be 42 soon. Uh, well, I think something around there. I haven't done the math lately. Uh, if 30 years ago, it'd been like, hey, you're going to go to Silicon Valley, and I wouldn't have believed it, right? I
Hmm.
wouldn't have believed. Just like I said, same thing about Cornell. I, Cornell wasn't like, oh, that's impossible. It was beyond dream. Now I could see the moon. I could look up and I could see the moon. Go, I could make it there one day because I could actually believe. And for me, that's like why I want more veterans there too. Because while more veterans and more people see themselves, people like them there, they can make it there and be like, oh, I can be that. So that's a lot of what it just wasn't possible in my mind as a 12-year-old or a 15-year-old that now it is.
I think I wrote that down too. You have to believe you belong. That's so powerful of just, I never thought of it like that. Like for every veteran who gets into an organization, some other veteran could see them. And I do think that when we see someone who has a similar background, you're like, okay, well, if they did it, it's at least possible. It makes it easier to believe that you can belong. That's really powerful. Um, is there I think one of the things I really appreciate about your presence online, or like what I see on LinkedIn, is it just seems like your message is one of like being really comfortable with yourself. And I love in like some of your images, you'll like have this sketch of yourself with your beard and all of these things. And I imagine that can be a transition for veterans of like just owning who they are and owning that. Any advice or things that have helped you just kind of accept yourself the way you are, and taking it 10 steps further, like putting yourself out there just as you are, not trying to pretty things up?
Yeah, I will say I always probably walked to the beat of my own drum, right? Kind of always was a
Yeah.
little like confident. I'll say the confident in myself, not cocky, but confident in like, hey, I am who I am, and I can't be anything else because this is all I know. So
Yeah.
let me do this. So for me, that was one thing I kind of said once I started doing social media, once I started posting more, was like, I'm not gonna be something else because I see the fakeness, and you see someone and you're like, oh, they're in front of a Lamborghini and they got all this makeup on, and it's like, yeah, you probably rented that for a day, and it's all fake. Like a
Yeah.
lot of a lot of social media is fake, especially off of LinkedIn
Mm.
and the other platforms. So for me, I was like, I only know how to be, and that's what I'm going to do. And for my look, that was a big thing for me. Everyone has their thing. For me, it was like the army told me for 20 years how I had to look.
Mm.
I'm going to do what I want and what makes me happy. And if a company doesn't like that, that's fine. That's their choice. They cannot like it, but I'm going to be me because I'm comfortable being me. I don't want to be someone I'm not. And look where I'm at. I'm not saying everyone can do that. I'm not saying
Yeah.
there's every action, there's a reaction, right? There's biases out there. Everyone deals with it. I've dealt with a lot less than a lot of people out there. So I'm not
Mm.
trying to say that, but hey, I'm going to be how I am. And for me, that's what I love like about my company. Service Now is embrace that. It's like, hey, just be yourself, right? And to me, that's refreshing. I think we need more of that. Just people being themselves and not all the same, right? We don't need robots. We need people being themselves.
I think that's powerful. I think for listeners who follow Herb on social media, you'll see the power when someone is just being themselves. I think we trust that more. We like that more. We move towards that more. Another thing I wanted to ask about for listeners who might want to become more active on social media, you're someone who posts extensively, like very frequently on social media. Could you share a little bit more about like why people might consider being more active on something like LinkedIn than they might otherwise be? And also what helps you maintain that consistency? Because that's not, I don't imagine that's easy to do.
Yeah, the first part is, why leverage LinkedIn? If it's for anything else, it's because you need a job, right? So
Yeah.
leverage it, and the best time to do it is not when you need the job. So
Mm.
what I see is people will be very hard into LinkedIn. They'll do some posts, they'll talk about what they're going through, and then they'll get a job and they go away. Statistics say a year, 2 years from now, they're going to be looking for a job again, have to start all over. But I look at another one. Like, to me, I learn from
Mm.
others as I look through the post or I see what they're commenting on me and the interaction I have. So to me, it makes me a better at what I'm doing today, not trying to get a new job. It's not just to get a new job. And for me, if you keep that up, when you do come in a time of need, you have a network there that can support you and be like, hey, yeah, I know about a job over here. Oh, hey, did you hear about this opportunity? And maybe it's not a job. Maybe it's a conference to go to, or maybe it's, hey, did you see this book? It's all about a community, right? Of building it. So for me, that's why LinkedIn, you should leverage it. And people
Mhm.
are missing out if they're not. Secondly, like, where do I come up with stuff? Probably the best thoughts are, I'm having a conversation with Corey as we're driving somewhere, or we're
Mm.
out on our walk, or I wake up at 2 a.m., can't fall back asleep, and I'm like, this is a great idea, and I'll jot it down, and then I'll come back to it.
Mm.
And one of the things I've learned recently is I started doing some video content. I've done a few videos before, but I it takes longer, right?
Mm.
I can have a thought to post in about a minute if I'm just typing it, in text format, or a picture with some words. But if I want to do a video, you have to plan it out a little bit more because it takes some. And I always want to have be raw and authentic, but it's like, hey, we got to go over here to shoot a video, or we got to do something. So to me, that takes more effort, but it's because I'm having fun doing it and learning. I'm using it as a learning experience or growth opportunity.
Mm. Do you think about and I apologize, I didn't do my homework to even know if you're on something like YouTube or TikTok or excuse me, Instagram or Facebook. Do you kind of view it as like LinkedIn's your platform and that's where you go all in, or do you plan to, or are you currently active on other social channels?
I do have a YouTube that has like 3 videos and probably 7 people and my dog have seen them. And then Corey and I share a TikTok. And but
Mm.
we were discussing this last night. TikTok's like our outlet to share some other stuff, right? That
Mm.
obviously LinkedIn's very professional, and that's where we do it. Version of professional is different for everyone, but
Mm.
that is it. But like, where do we show another side of us, or where can we have a little fun? For us, it's TikTok, which I was hesitant to, but let's be real, that's where a lot of people are, right? There's a
Mm.
lot, especially younger generation, who won't be the younger generation. They're coming up, so that's a way to kind of connect with them. And for us, it's fun to do that. But was like, hey, where do I start with that, right? Like, if I was trying to grow some brand, like, why would I've already got something here. I'm not trying to monetize it. I'm not trying
Yeah.
to do something like that. So I'll just keep doing what I'm doing, because if I go over there, I'm gonna have to start over. And quite frankly, that's a lot of work, right? To like,
Yeah.
because what works on one is probably, in theory, not going to work in the other, because it's slightly different, both how you attract people and how you retain their attention. So for me, kind of made a deliberate decision of, once in a while we'll do some other stuff over there, but it's more for fun or something
Mm.
like that. Just because time requirements, just like everyone else, there's only 24 hours a day, and can't spend all the day having fun doing that stuff.
That's awesome. One other thing I want to ask about is recently you had a big event involving a football game and Black Rifle Coffee. What would you want people to know about that? How did that come about? What was that like?
Yeah, reached out to me actually. What do you know, through LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Someone who reached out to me and said, "Hey, are you interested in doing this?" And I said yes, and it was to go be the veteran of the game for the Washington Commanders. The backstory is, I grew up in upstate New York, and our team was called the Wayland Redskins, named after the Redskins, which are now the Commanders.
No.
So there was like a connection. So when I was like 10 years old, that was my dream. I'm going to score a touchdown for the Redskins, something like that. So now, being in DC, it was just natural fit. I will say this: like, you talk about what's different between now, when I wrote the book earlier, and then, a couple of years ago. A couple of years ago, I would have said no to this opportunity. I would
Mm.
not have wanted the spotlight on me. I would not have wanted to be out there in front of 60,000 people receiving recognition. Now, if I was training them or talking to them, I'm fine with that. But like to receive recognition, um, but I was like, hey, I'm one person out there representing all of us who served, and my family gets to come here and see it. So it was a really neat opportunity to go down on the field, get in the end zone, have the crowd cheer for you, and then coming back from down, you go through all the kind of hallways to get back into like where normal everyone else is, and people are stopping me, so I couldn't get back up to the seat because people are stopping me like, hey, thank you, and shaking
Wow.
hands and taking pictures. And again, a couple years ago, that would have made me very uncomfortable. Someone thanking me for my service and
Mm.
doing that, but I've embraced it. It's a part of who I am. It's a way to again build a bridge versus build a wall by saying, "Hey, thank you, appreciate it. It's been my privilege to serve, etc." And because how many other veterans are they interacting with? I might be the first,
Mm.
or at least I'm the last until they meet the next one. So why not have that chance to make a positive impact for someone?
I love that. I really think that's powerful. That thought of sounds like something that got you over that hurdle was like you're representing other people. And I think that's a really powerful way to step into that discomfort of like, I don't really want to be in front of 60,000 people, but you really are creating a bridge. Like people see you and they associate you with other veterans. And that's good for all of us. And so that's a powerful mindset shift. I know you got a job, you got a LinkedIn presence, you got a TV to hang, all these other things. I want to keep the last question open ended, which is just anything that we didn't talk about that you want to share or anything else you want to leave with people?
Hey, I'll just say this: don't do anything alone. Right?
Mm.
Uh, it's reality of we have mental health crisis in this country, and especially affects us veterans. Reach out, talk to a buddy. We've overcome so much, especially from veterans. We've overcome so much to then come back here and for what? To then lose the battle, and it's really a battle with ourselves, right? We determine our own success, so don't worry about some dude who looks like me. He got to go to the Redskins game. That's okay. That is you live your life, and what's your success is going to be determined by you. And that's why I always say own your journey. So reach out, ask people for help. So many people are willing to help, and you don't have to feel bad for it because like when you're good, then you go back and you help some people and you pull them up. But we all help each other, and we make it a better place for us.
That's awesome. Well, Herbert, thank you so much for your time on this. I'll put in the show notes a link to his LinkedIn profile. Highly, highly, highly recommend that you follow him on LinkedIn. It is, I think what's so powerful for me to think about is like, obviously the book is so much value and people should check that out. And every single day you're dropping new insights every single day. It's like this continuing conversation from the book, this dynamic exchange. And so really appreciate what you're doing for the veteran community and appreciate your joining us on the show today.
No, it's my privilege. I really appreciate it, Justin.